Hello and welcome back to Indy Homefront. I'm Travis Smith. This is Gary Tedrow. This is episode 2 of Let's Ask Gary. Today we're going to be talking about first-time home buyers, frequently asked questions, and the types of questions that Gary answers on a regular basis. So, Gary, you want to just get into it, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite subject. We love first-time home buyers. So,
for sure. All right. So, biggest misconception that first-time homebuyers have about getting a mortgage?
Yeah. Well, there's a few. Some still not sure how much they're going to actually need for a down payment. They'll hear and see advertisements about no money down, and yet, their older parents are telling them, "Oh, you're going to need 20% to put down." So a lot of times they have that misconception. Credit. I mean, credit is all over the board from kind of can vary from lender to lender, so they get a little bit confused with that. But I'd say biggest one for me is just the process. How do I get started? What am I going to need? And those kinds of things. And it can be a little overwhelming for them. And I talked to a lady this morning, and her boyfriend didn't want to start the process because he didn't think his credit was very good. He was kind of afraid, and so we took a look at it right there while he was on the phone with us, and it wasn't as bad as he thought. Needs a little work, but it wasn't. I've seen worse.
Right. So how much money realistically do most people need?
Yeah. Well, a lot of first-time home buyers will go the path of the minimum down. So you're looking anywhere from 3.5% to maybe 3% if we go conventional. There are, and we'll get into a little bit later, but there are several programs out there that you don't even need a down payment. We think of our veterans, that's 100% financing. United States Department of Agriculture, they have a loan program out there that's 100% financing. No down payment is required for that. And then there are multiple down payment assistance programs where they will provide the down payment for you and so forth. So, anywhere from 0 to whatever. And if you end up getting a gift from your parents, that it's pretty much whatever they want to give you. So it's really wide open. There's a lot of different programs.
So there's a lot of variables as
Yes.
far as that goes. What program you're using? You mentioned credit score. What credit score do people need?
Yeah, there again, it will depend on which program that they're going to actually use. Believe it or not, FHA will actually go all the way down to a 500 credit score.
Oh, wow.
The problem is, us as lenders, we don't want to go that low, obviously, but most lenders are going to cap you kind of at that down to like a 580 for just a normal FHA loan. We do happen to have some investors that we can go a little bit lower than that, but most aren't going to go below 580. Ideally, if you're needing some kind of down payment assistance program, you're going to want to be, at least at 600 or higher. If you want to go, there's a very popular in our area, it's called Indiana Housing. You're going to need a 660 to utilize that program. So it's there again, depends on which program you're going to use. We've got some down payment programs that will go all the way down to the 600. So it just depends on which one you're using.
That's good. I mean, I think a lot of people, like your current client's boyfriend, a lot of people are concerned about their credit score. They've had some mishaps in the past or whatever else, and they don't have perfect credit, and now they're thinking, "Oh, I can't do it." But there is a possibility, right? You got to talk to Gary. Yeah.
Now, I will say, on the FHA side, when you start getting, if you do find a lender that will go below the 580, and if you're using FHA, you are going to be looking at 10% down at that point. So You're not going to have a down payment program available to you, at least none that I'm aware of. You just never know what happens to be out there. I don't want to, sound like I've got the market on every program, but for what I know, you're not going to find a down payment assistance type of program below 600. But then if you start getting down into 580, you're going to need a lot more money to put down for a down payment. And to just think about it as risk. If somebody came to you, wanted you to personally give them money, you looked at their credit, you'd be like, you need to have a little skin in the game.
Right.
So,
yeah, for sure. So what's the very first step that someone should take before going to look at a home?
Yeah, pick up the phone and call a local lender, just to start that whole process, to figure out, where you're at, what is your credit score, what's your income, how long have you been on the job, how are you being paid? That's a big factor as well. I mean, yeah, you may be paid by the hour, but we're seeing a lot I've probably seen more in the last 4 to 5 years than I can remember in times past, but we're seeing a lot of what we call variable income these days. And so that just means what it says, their paycheck varies from week to week. How many hours they work varies from week to week. Now, that's great if that's overtime. Maybe some weeks you get, 4 or 5 hours overtime, or some of our contractor guys will get, they'll work 60, 70 hour weeks. That's just the norm for them. But, when you have somebody that works 38 hours one week, 40 hours the next, then 39 hours, that we've got to, now we can't just say you're a 40-hour a week person at that. We've got to start averaging that income and so forth. So knowing that up front with, as you're going into a loan, getting that income nailed down is an important part of the process.
What about like me, a realtor or a car salesman or somebody that's commission based?
Yes.
What about that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Travis. We want to see a history of them. So in most situations, you're going to have a 2-year history, especially for real estate and mortgage guys. They want to know how many homes we're selling, how many loans we're closing, to give some kind of a baseline, if it will. And that's so you're going to look at a 2-year average. Now there are some circumstances where maybe we can go a little less than 2 years, 18 months. But just as a good rule of thumb, you want to be, if you're self-employed or you're commission-based, you want to have a 2-year history.
Okay. So that makes sense. So when we talked about this a little bit in episode 1, pre-approval versus pre-qualified, but it wouldn't hurt to go over it again because I think this is good for first-time home buyers.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
What's the difference?
Yeah, so a pre-qualification simply means that we've talked to you. We've looked at your you've told me your income. We've kind of talked about that. We've done some calculations. I've taken a look at your credit. So in a lot of ways, that's just maybe like a soft pull on your credit. So we're not hitting you with a hard inquiry and you're seeing 2 or 3 point ding on your score. So a lot of times it's just a soft inquiry, but we've looked at your credit, we've talked to you about your income, and maybe in even some situations you've given me your pay stubs and I've done a manual calculation, and then based on what I'm seeing or what I know about the guidelines, I would say that you would fit into this loan program and I would pre-qualify you based on that. The pre-approvals is a step further. Not only have I looked at it, but we've gathered it together. I've submitted it to my underwriters, and my underwriter has looked at it. She's done her calculations, and since she's the one that's going to approve the loan, give us our final approval, she then will send that approval back to me, and then I get with the buyer and I say, look, we've got our income nailed down, so now we know exactly how the underwriter is going to calculate your income, and now we can use that to determine how much house you want, what you want your payment to be, and then send that letter over. It says we've been pre-approved. The underwriter has officially signed off on it. So
okay. So in terms of how much house, right? Mm-hmm. So how much house should somebody look to buy versus what they're approved for?
Yeah. That's going to be an individual question, case by case. I mean, I tell my clients, especially the first time home buyers, I heard this years ago, probably from Dave Ramsey or somebody like that, but I heard that a home is to be a blessing. And I think we talked about this a little bit in the first video as well. If you're buying at the absolute top end of your price point, and you've stretched yourself, maybe you're used to paying $1,200 to $1,500 in rent right now, and then you stretch that up over $2,000 a month for a house payment. Well, now you're responsible for, when the hot water heater breaks or the appliances go out, or you have a leak now, you've got to have a roof on the house, and you just, next thing you know, that home that's supposed to be a blessing to you and your family is a curse, because it's such a struggle to pay for it. And you find yourself completely alternating or realigning your lifestyle, I guess, or, now you're not going out to eat with your friends because you just can't afford it. You've got this mortgage hanging over your head. So
I think they call that house poor.
Yeah, house poor. So anyway, and that's, I tell my clients, you don't want to be house poor. You want it to be a blessing, and so forth. But at the end of the day, we're going to tell you what your max is, or what we would estimate you to be really close to. But then you're gonna be in the driver's seat, the buyer themselves, knowing what they're comfortable spending a month. Our underwriters have their limits. They're going to look at your debt ratios, and so they're going to have their guidelines, and then it's just a matter of you and the underwriter kind of coming to an agreement.
Yeah, and communicate that with your agent, with your realtor as well, what you're comfortable with, because pre-approval comes back and you're pre-approved for this much, but after looking at everything and my monthly payment and all that, I would actually rather be here, right? So your agent isn't still showing you homes or sending you homes that are up here, right?
Yeah.
You just got to communicate that for what you're comfortable with.
Yeah. We always ask our first-time home buyers 2 questions: how much you want to spend a month, and then a lot of them have already looked at houses before they've called us. In fact, they've probably found a house they like, have called you, and then you said, "Are you pre-approved?" And that's kind of how they got over to us. It says, you need to call Gary, you need to call your lender, or whatever. But so we'll ask them, what do they want to spend a month? But then we also ask them, what price point of houses have you been looking for? Because I've found sometimes there's a disconnect between how much house they want versus what they think that payment is going to be.
Right.
Some of that is, because maybe the house that they're currently in that they're renting, or the apartment that they're in and they're renting, and they know what they're paying in rent, and so they kind of equate that to a certain kind of house or whatever. So we like to ask up front, just so we know if there's a disconnect. If somebody's telling me they want to keep their payment around $1,000 or $1,200 a month, but they're out looking at $400,000 homes, that there's a big disconnect right there. And so we try to very early on the front end, bring those two, price and house, to kind of more in sync with what they could be expecting and looking for.
Right. Okay. So going back to loan programs, what loans are specifically designed for first-time home buyers?
Okay. Well, most of them have some kind of a component, but like I said earlier, FHA, a lot of first-time home buyers use your FHA programs. Great interest rates, and then a lot of your down payment assistant programs are kind of geared toward and underwritten under FHA guidelines. We do have conventional. We've got 3 or 4 programs that are conventional based, but mostly first-time home buyers will gravitate toward like an FHA loan. The reason for that is you get a little better break on the higher debt to income ratios. You can, especially for our lower income people, we can kind of get those DTIs a little bit higher and acceptable and approvable by the underwriter than maybe you could with a conventional loan. Okay. There again, it's a case-by-case basis. We just see which ones you qualify for, and then which one's going to be the best application for you. So.
Okay. What are some of the top mistakes people make in the loan process?
Yeah, going to buy a new car. Unfortunately, I have experienced that, and no matter how many times you tell them on the front end, don't do any of these things. We have our do's and our don'ts list, and obviously, don't buy a new car would be kind of like don't open any new trade lines. You want to keep over the next 2 to 3 weeks when the underwriter is reviewing everything, you just kind of want to keep everything low key. You don't want to have any new accounts opening up. We don't want to have any big changes in our debt to income ratio. So that's one that unfortunately we have experienced.
Well, but the new garage is so much bigger. I can fit a bigger truck in there.
Yeah.
And the living room and a family room in this house. So I need to finance some furniture.
Yeah.
Well, what?
Yeah.
What's the problem, Gary?
It's real. Years ago, I closed a loan up near Arrowhead Golf Course up here north of Greenfield, and there was a young lady, and she bought a home in there. And talk about guidelines changing now. Loans are pretty much monitored from time we start the application through closing. There's some back end artificial intelligence running, scanning the whole time, seeing if there's any big spikes in the in your overall debt to income ratios and so forth. Back when I was helping her, that was not the case, but I remember sitting at the close table and she's signing her paperwork, and I find out that this whole time she had been buying appliances, she had been buying a new floor tile and all that stuff, and it was all her realtor had let her store it inside the garage. And I just remember, we were already at the close table, and so, but my heart kind of went to my throat a little bit, because I'm like, here this lady was buying all of this stuff, and she did not have final approval yet, and I was just like, man, don't do anything like that. Don't be buying furniture. Don't be buying, a new car. Now there are circumstances where life happens. You're going to work and your car just, bites the dust or gives up the ghost, whatever you want to say, and you need to. That's fine. I understand that. Call your lender. Let's talk through that process. See how that's going to impact you. If there's a way that you can maybe temporarily wait, then we can have those conversations. But yeah, just stay in constant communication with your lender. Any changes and things going on in your life, but that's a big one. Don't be opening up any new credit.
Yeah, your best bet is to make sure you have a house to put the new appliances in before you buy the new appliances. So interest rates. How do interest rates impact buying power?
Well, obviously, the lower the rate, the more house that you can, afford, the more house that you can finance. Obviously, there's a big difference on a $300,000 house with a 7% rate versus, 4 or 5% rate or something like that. So it does impact it. However, if you are, if you're conscious of what you can afford a month, then I don't know. I don't think rate is going to be a deal breaker for you in that situation. Now, if you're trying to buy at the very top end, where that's your absolute max, then yeah, you would have to scale that back. But if you're very conscious, you're just trying to stay in the middle of the road. First time home buyers typically aren't trying to buy their dream home. They're not. Occasionally I see it, but most of the time they're not out there looking at the 350, 450, 550 homes. They're in that $200 to $300 range, and so they're buying somewhat modestly. So I don't necessarily see rate impacting that often. It always has some impact on it, but not so much to where qualifying versus not qualifying.
So what would you say, and we touched on this a little bit last time, but what would you say to somebody that's waiting on interest rates to drop before they make a move?
Yeah, right now we are kind of in that rates coming down model, and so I talk to people every week, and they're talking about maybe just waiting, and they're kind of on the fence, and that's fine. I don't ever want to pressure anybody into buying a house. I just make sure they know there are opportunity costs that are associated with waiting. And the biggest part of that is typically due to inflation, home values go up year over year. And so, you may be waiting till the rates come down to maybe you say you have 5% in your mind or whatever. And obviously we're not there yet. But, if that's what you've got in your mind and you're waiting, well, first of all, we have no idea if they'll ever get down to 5 again. Who knows? Secondly, every year that you're waiting or so, or every cycle, typically that home is going to go up 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 grand. It's going to be more than what it would have been if you would have, went ahead and bought it. So.
Right. And if you've already got your eye on a home, there might be somebody out there that's not waiting on interest rates to drop.
Right.
And then you've missed it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So underwriting, you mentioned underwriting earlier. What does that process look like behind the scenes?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So once we've gathered all the documents on the front side that we went through earlier, then we will take that information, we'll get it over to my processing team. They will go through that, do some calculations, to just kind of a second layer of, checking my math, so to speak, just kind of that second layer. They will also complete what we call our third-party verifications. So it's at this time we're going to reach out to your employer and verify that you're still employed. Believe it or not, I've had people quit their jobs on the way to the closing table and realizing title is going to ask you, or we do same day verifications of employment. So we're going to verify that you're still employed. We're going to be ordering title work, order an appraisal if we have a property, and we're just doing it to get them pre-approved. We won't be ordering those things, but processing will order all the third-party verifications. Then we'll submit that loan to the underwriter. While the underwriter has it, it's basically just, once again, she's just going through her checklist. Do we have income? What are your calculations? Was the loan officer's calculations? What are my calculations? And she's going to go through, your credit, making sure that, we don't have some collections that we have to deal with, or any judgments out there, or, those kinds of things. And so she's going through the credit, and then she's going through your income, your job history, make sure we have stability of income. She's just a final pair of eyes reviewing pretty much what I have reviewed and my processing has reviewed. And then she sends us a nice little email that says pre-approved. And perfect. We reach out to the borrower at that
and
time.
everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy.
Move forward.
Yeah.
All right. So we've covered a lot. Hopefully we've answered some questions. Last thing for you, Gary, if someone out there is nervous about buying their first home, what advice do you have for them?
Take a deep breath. We've all been there.
Yeah.
I bought my first home. You bought your first home. The biggest fear often is to questions that you've not asked yet. So just pick up the phone, give your lender a call, give me a call, and we'll walk through those questions with you. We really take good care of our clients and walk that process with them, because we do it every day, and we are aware of that. Sometimes we're guilty of certain lingo, LTV, DTI, all those things, and the average buyer out there has no clue what we're talking about. Same as real estate agents. Yeah. You guys have your lingo, CMAs and things like that. But just know that your lender is going to be there with you. Him or her, they'll be able to answer your questions for you. There are no dumb questions. We've all been there. We've all had those. The reason we like first-time home buyers so much is because it keeps our job fresh and exciting. Because they do ask questions, and once in a while I'll get a very unique question. I'll get one that nobody's asked me that before, and so I'm always learning, evolving with the clients and so forth. But yeah, just know that you're not by yourself. Your agent will help you, guide you. So will we, and we're all in this together. Our goal is to get you to the closing table as a team, because we don't get paid until you get your keys in your hands.
Right.
So we want to get paid, and so we want you to have that house. So we're going to do what we need to do. So
yeah. So I think that's it. Gary, thank you again so much for answering the questions. Again, I'm going to put Gary's link to his YouTube channel and his contact information in the description of this video. If you have any questions whatsoever about the first-time home buyer or just any of the home buying process, feel free to reach out to Gary or reach out to me on the Indy Homefront channel, and we'll get them answered for you. If you have any topics that you'd like us to cover in a Let's Ask Gary episode, let me know, and we'll do it. In the meantime, everybody have a great weekend.
good.
I don't know why I said weekend.